Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. It is episode number 48 of News Capsule, and we have our guest as always, Sridhar Chityala ji. Sridhar ji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskaram and good morning to all.
Good morning to you, sir, and good morning to all our viewers. We lead off with a lawsuit being filed by Texas against Michigan, Georgia, and a few other states. And I can just read the headlines for you. The state of Texas filed a lawsuit directly with the SCOTUS shortly before midnight on Monday, challenging the election procedures in Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin on the grounds that they violate the Constitution. Now, what can you tell us about this, sir? And this has appeared in Breitbart for those of you who want to go and read the entire article. But there is a very fundamental point that the state of Texas has raised here, isn't it?
It is. Firstly, I think it's fascinating because it's breaking news. Their target is battleground states, probably Arizona included. The fundamental contention is that there are a common set of rules which forms the basis of the formation of the federation, right? That was the consistent set of principles that with unique nuances in each state to be passed. So the electoral process is one of the most fundamental and salient features of the Constitution. So what Texas is saying is that when a set of rules has been agreed in the Constitution, in the conduct of the elections, where the rules and process is defined by state legislature, how in some of these states the judicial and the executive branch can incorporate rules as they go and conduct an election process. If that is the case, then the election process conducted in rest of the states is not in compliance. So they've raised a fundamental question that these states have violated. So therefore, one should set aside the rules of the election. One should set aside the outcome from these states. It's a very interesting constitutional point, which is now placed before the Supreme Court. Very similar to the Pennsylvania that we discussed yesterday as well, which is namely why Pennsylvania Supreme Court had an opportunity to reset its own decision when an appeal was filed, and when that appeal was again declined or rejected, now they've taken it to SCOTUS.
Well, thanks for that upgrade, that clarification, sir. Let's take a look at what has been happening in various states, the ones that are mentioned in this lawsuit. First off, let us start with Georgia. Sidney Powell lost her case in a federal court in Georgia, and she has now moved the SCOTUS on that. Sir, why do you think she lost the case in the federal court in Georgia?
Well, I think that there seems to be a consistent pattern, which is to say that the evidence is inadequate, and then the counter to that by the state officials is the conduct of the elections was in due process, and they certified. So therefore, there's nothing that is to establish, and they've used the faith as a basis to nullify the arguments presented by Sidney Powell. I think Sidney Powell has gone to I don't know whether she's gone to the SCOTUS, but she's probably gone to the Supreme Court of the state from the federal court, or whether she's gone to SCOTUS. That's not clear as yet in terms of where she is heading. But it's very clear in the case of Georgia, you have inconsistent set of things. One is Sidney Powell's case. Then if you take the case of the Trump's team, the Trump's team has asked for the selective audit of the Dominion machines and the forensic analysis of the data. That process is still kind of going on. Whereas Sidney is saying the whole electoral conduct itself is incorrect and there are compromises. And she has pointed out Dr. Naz's data, which used to say these servers were potentially connected to China and Iran. We covered this a few days ago.
Yes, we did.
So I think so. This is so when we talk about Sidney Powell, we are talking about what she is filing across the nation and as it relates to Georgia here. And in the meanwhile, the Trump's team thing, that process kind of goes on.
And Judge Alito has moved forward the date for filings in another state, isn't it, sir? And that is supposed to be happening in within an hour or so. Can you please update us on what is happening there?
Okay, I think that it is. This is an extension which we discussed, which is namely the Supreme Court refused to accede to the point that they don't have the jurisdictional rights with the executive branch in terms of extending the deadline and changing rules in the last minute without the state legislature. Mike Kelly, the Republican, the senator from the local state house, has filed this suit. So they have now taken it to the what you call the circuit court, which is headed by the SCOTUS judge Sam Alito, and that hearing is this morning. It was supposed to be Wednesday. He advanced it by a day, and it is this morning, basically contesting this. Whether Alito himself will pass or whether he will say this requires a wider constitutional bench and must be taken to SCOTUS for the final resolution remains to be seen. The constitutional pundits basically are of the opinion that we are now in uncharted waters on these specific issues, which is namely, can a Supreme Court overrule constitutionally and give the conduct and the outcome of the elections to be determined by the state legislature, the electoral votes to be determined by the state legislature? There is the constitutional experts, as I mentioned, believe that there is a gap that will soon be discovered as these things make its way, including the Texas.
Sir, I have a quick question regarding the tweet that President Donald Trump tweeted out yesterday, saying that something big is coming down the line in the next couple of days. Do you think it was this Texas lawsuit, or was he referring to something else, sir?
Well, it's impossible to predict the mind of President Trump, but I have a feeling that it could be. I could be completely wrong. It's just pure speculation. There is this whole thing about interference of foreign agencies and countries. There was also these rumors that some U.S. forces had raided the server farm in Germany, something in France, in Spain.
Yeah.
There was also the specific, DOJ case filed from Nevada that the servers were, the email responses were being sent to Pakistan. There was also this issue that, whether Chinese and Iranian influence was in Georgia. So there's a whole raft of security and systemic kind of issues as it relates to Dominion software, plus the whole kind of ownership architecture of Dominion. So it could be something that is related to that on the security side.
One wonders if it is within the purview of the powers of the president to ban usage of a couple of these electronic voting machines for the Georgia runoff that is going to happen sometime in January, probably first week or second week.
January.
January, when, sir?
5th.
January 5th. Now, the ballot voting is going to start on the December 14th. And whatever be the course corrections and everything, I think the order will have to come down like within the next couple of days. And then at least that guarantees that the Senate elections will be on a level playing field. There'll be no hanky-panky, no questions about what happened, who did what. I'm not sure if 3 weeks is long enough for the state to be able to not use a voting machine and be able to tabulate them manually. I have no idea, sir, how big a state Georgia is. Perhaps you can shed some light, assuming that is what is the government, that is what is the president thinking about.
No, I hear you, sir. I think that we covered it again about a few days ago, maybe last week. Already, greater than 1 million postal ballots has been sought from an electoral roll of 6.7 million. Now, that's a pretty big number. Right, it's almost 15%, greater than 16% of it. So how they're going to dispense with this within a short span of time, in terms of changing the systems, unless there is a kind of compelling and beyond doubt evidence, they may come up with an alternate model. Otherwise, all these Dominion systems and software is configured to do the counting process, the validation process, and all those kinds of tabulation and the allocation process. So the only thing that I can think of is maybe a much tighter procedures in terms of making sure that the Republican observers and the Democratic observers are present, and there is a much tighter audit process. Other than that, I just don't know whether there's enough window of time to change the systemic things.
So, thank you for that, sir. Let's take a look at what is happening outside of the United States. First off, India has had a fairly successful Brahmos missile. I guess what I could call as a launch or implementation, because now more countries are coming and asking India about the Brahmos missile. We had Philippines, we had Vietnam asking, and then I think Indonesia also was asking, and now you have 3 more countries. What can you tell us about that, sir?
Well, it just reflects it reflects 3 things. One, it reflects India's growing stature as a defense power in the region, especially around that whole Eastern and West Asia belt. That's number one. Number two, the trust that these countries places in India to be an able supplier and supporter in terms of the national security of these countries. That's the second telling point, which Prime Minister Modi in his global conference pointed out, that world respects India and world trusts India in their ability to kind of deliver against whatever is required from a world's needs point of view. That's the second point. I think the third thing that also says is the kind of seismic shift that has taken place in the past 4 years. Right? Historically, the West Asian region, or Middle East, as some people refer it, is the supplier is United States. But now, with India coming in, obviously with the tacit support of United States, it's proving that India has retabled and rekindled and established, cemented. With UAE, there never was doubt. UAE is one of the top 5 trading partners of India, be it in imports or exports or capital inflows. UAE has been a very strategic partner. I think Saudi from an oil point of view, but now it looks like they're extending that tentacles as well. Qatar is a very big surprise. Qatar sits on the periphery on either side, but that's a very big surprise to be a very, very able and willing partner, because you know Qatar has got big natural gas that's got significant implications to India.
Thanks for that, sir. And viewers, here is a very big reveal. On the 10th of December, that is 2 days from now, Chicago City Council is going to vote on an anti-CAA resolution. Yes, you heard that right. We told you, we have been telling you for a long time now, 56 city councils, all Democratic run, have been lining up to try and do this resolution. 7 have already done that. Now Chicago is poised to do this, and I hope all those Indian Americans who voted Democrat in the recently concluded elections, you have to hang your heads in shame. We have been saying this for a long time. I have already had a lawmaker, Meenakshi Lekhi, come and explain the reason why this law was enacted. I also had a governor of Meghalaya, a border state, come and explain why this was needed. And furthermore, I had an additional Solicitor General of India come and explain the basic, the every detail that was used in this CAA law. And if those of you who consider yourself to be quite literate, in fact most Indian Americans think that they know everything, that others don't know anything. The latter part is very true, by the way. You think that you know everything, fine, but you also are convinced that the other person doesn't know anything. I think there is an attitude adjust that is needed. Indian Americans need to understand what is going on. We are all like frogs. We have been put in a huge cauldron where the water is slowly boiling. As long as the water boils slowly, the frog doesn't realize that it is being cooked slowly until it is too late. I hope this message carries across. There is a lot of money being pumped into this. I have already expressed fears that close to $156 million was being dispensed onto 52 city councils. That comes to 3 million per city council. I'm also being told that number is wrong, that the number is much higher. Sridharji, do you have any insights into the numbers and what you think is happening?
I think the numbers that are being floated around, is somewhere between per council average between 3 to 5 million. This is the general number that is being dispensed. Let's assume even three. You said 156 million. If you take five, you're talking about close to $260 million pumped in, basically to prop up an anti-India propaganda, right? An anti-India propaganda. It's not just the councils, but all major left-wing publications here, talk about the discriminatory kind of policy of defined as CAA or Article 370, which is special rights and privileges, National Register of Citizens, NRC, etc. So these are the kind of three tentacles that these councils, toggle between the other. But now let's take the case. Today, the news that is hot is Secretary Pompeo has listed quite a few states and tweeted, and PGurus will share that slide. Has tweeted that China, Pakistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, etc. These are states which have been listed as states for religious persecution of minorities. This is Republican side. Okay? And then on the contrary, you have the Democratic councils with a potential Democratic president coming in, right? He's the incumbent right now. He's the president-elect. Though, there is a divided opinion, you have already the snippets of Chicago taking up the CAA issue. In the meanwhile, you also have a major agitation going on in India, and you have few countries propping up with no knowledge of the issues and raising their head. So we are now moving into a very interesting geopolitical phase where the Indian Americans or Indian overseas citizens of those nations not being cognizant and not being familiar, being part and parcel of this disruptive ecosystem.
All I can say, sir, is that PGurus has a series of articles and videos on this farmers' agitation. It is not by farmers, it is by somebody else. We have already explained what is the rationale behind this. And in my opinion, the Modi government needs a very effective spokesperson. They had one called Syed Akbaruddin, who was India's representative in the United Nations, I believe. Now he's back in India. I hope they pick someone of that person's caliber to try and get this messaging out there to Canada, to United Kingdom, to United States, wherever it is. It is very important that the communications path is open and that India stays ahead of the ball. I cannot tell enough times how much we have emphasized that this is a fake narrative. CAA is a very humane thing. In fact, I'm telling you, shame on some of the senators who have already signed up saying that 5,000 minority members who are stuck up in Afghanistan should be given prioritized citizenship in US, and this includes Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders. These are all Democrats, and now you have a Democratic City Council voting against it. Can you at least get your narrative straight, for God's sake? So this is something that needs to be understood by people. Democrats don't seem to be really all online. There are more than one faction inside, and this is not good for the country, even assuming a Biden presidency is going to take hold on January 21st. Sir, we are running out of time. If you want to add something for this debate on this topic, we can do that, and then afterwards we can call it a wrap.
Right. The only thing that I think you have, PGurus has done enormous amount of work on all these topics with various kinds of experts in each of these fields, both legal as well as social, right? Legal, political, and social pundits have given tremendous amount of coverage in discussing this specific topic. It seems to be very polarized. and vested interests are driving the agenda without neither comprehending the rules nor comprehending the implications that it has to the geopolitics, right? I think that's the sad truth. My final point in this is that what you call as the squad gang, which wanted Minister for External Affairs to be called to the House to address, was led by Pramila Jayapal and the Vice President elect right now, Ms. Kamala Harris. If she is now going to become the Vice President, what would be the policy thinking that prevails? And then the dumbness of the Indian Americans is, oh, Modi can take care. How can Modi take care when you elect somebody who is fundamentally anti, right? That is, see, I'm not saying, I'm a Democrat or a Republican or what. I may have certain views on Republicans, I may have certain views on Democrats, and I may choose. But the fact is that when you objectively look at this and assess what people have done, explicitly done, why would they change when they assume even more significance of power, especially to satisfy that specific base?
So true, sir, and much food for thought for Chicago-based Indian Americans. I can only say that you need to move your council person. You have to tell them what is going on. In fact, it is very, very short. It is going to be on the 10th of December, and it's my bet, my contention that more cities will start lining up once Chicago passes this thing. It's a nonsensical resolution, and it's a waste of taxpayer money in these times of COVID. Why is a city council doing this? And if you go and ask some of these blundering, I won't want to use any expletives, people who are doing these resolutions, they say, oh, go and have a Republican run city council pass a pro CAA resolution and then we are even. That's a very flippant remark. You have to understand that people have put you in this place for a job. You are supposed to take care of your constituents. Why do you care about what is happening halfway across the world on a matter that you don't know, on a matter where some of your senators have voted against your stand? Why are you making a fool of yourself? Anyway, a lot of questions. I hope some of them, at least one of the Chicago-based Indian Americans, forwards this to one of their city council members. Hopefully they get riled up enough from this conversation to listen and introspect and do the right thing. Thank you very much, sir. Namaskar.
Thank you. Namaskar. Have a wonderful day.